You'll always be a nobody, Mom declared over Sunday dinner, her voice dripping with disappointment. 30 years old, and what do you have to show for it? A tiny apartment and some mysterious consulting job. I pushed my food around the plate, letting their words wash over me like they had for the past decade. The massive penthouse where I actually lived would probably give them a heart attack. Not that they'd ever see it. They hadn't earned that privilege. Even your cousin Michael just made partner at his law firm, Dad added, as if I hadn't heard about Michael's success at every family gathering for the past year. Meanwhile, you're still... What exactly are you doing, Alex? Investment consulting, I replied simply, knowing they wouldn't bother to ask for details. They never did. If you'd just taken that junior accounting position I offered. Dad started. The one paying $45,000 a year? I smiled, thinking about the deals I'd closed that morning alone. No thanks. I'm doing fine. Mom sniffed disapprovingly. Fine? That rattling Toyota you drive says otherwise. And that apartment in that awful neighborhood. Yes, my props. The carefully maintained illusion of struggling that kept them from asking too many questions. They'd never guessed that the awful neighborhood apartment was just an address I kept for appearances, or that the Toyota was purely for visits to their house. Speaking of business, Dad straightened importantly, we're meeting some potential investors tomorrow. High net worth clients interested in our new development project. The Leopold Building downtown. I nearly choked on my water. The Leopold Building. My building, purchased through one of my holding companies 3 months ago. The one they were desperately trying to acquire for their struggling real estate firm. Really? I managed, hiding my amusement. Sounds interesting. Not that you'd understand the complexities, Mom waved dismissively. Real estate development takes experience, connections, actual business skills. Right? I nodded, checking my phone under the table. A message from my building manager. Your parents' firm requested a meeting tomorrow. Should be entertaining. We should get going, Dad announced, standing. Big day tomorrow. Maybe someday, Alex, if you apply yourself, you'll understand what real success looks like. I hugged them goodbye, playing my role perfectly. The disappointing child, the underachiever, the nobody they'd always predicted I'd be. If they'd bothered to read any financial news in the past 5 years, they might have noticed the rising star in private equity. The mysterious investor whose holding companies were quietly acquiring prime real estate across the city. But that would have required them to look beyond their own narrow definition of success. In my Aston Martin, safely parked 2 blocks away, I called my building manager. Tomorrow should be interesting, he chuckled. What's the play? Standard protocol, I replied, starting the engine. They'll need owner's permission to access the building. I'll be watching from my office. The penthouse office they don't know exists? Exactly. I pulled onto the highway, leaving their suburban certainties behind. Make sure security knows. No special treatment, no exceptions. They want to see the building's owner? They'll have to work for it. Like they made you work for their approval? Something like that, I smiled, thinking about tomorrow. Sometimes success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about watching them realize how wrong they've been all along. The city lights blurred past as I drove toward my actual home, the penthouse suite of the Leopold Building. The same building my parents thought they could acquire with their outdated business model and inflated sense of importance. My phone buzzed again, another message from my financial advisor. Morgan Stanley deal closed. $240 million profit. Your parents' entire net worth wouldn't cover the commission. Funny how life works out. While they were busy telling everyone about cousin Michael's prestigious $180,000 partner salary, I was closing deals that could buy his entire law firm 100 times over. I pulled into my private garage beneath the Leopold, nodding to James, the security chief who'd become a trusted confidant in my game of appearances. Good dinner with the family? He asked, already smirking. Oh, you know, I laughed, stepping into my private elevator. The usual. I'm a disappointment, a nobody, should have taken Dad's generous offer to work in his failing company. If they only knew they were having dinner with the person who owns half their city's premium real estate. 3/4 actually, I corrected. Closed on the Riverside development this morning. The elevator opened directly into my penthouse, 12,000 square feet of luxury that would make my parents' McMansion look like a guest house. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city I was quietly acquiring, piece by premium piece. My assistant Sarah was waiting with updates. Your parents' firm filed their meeting request. They're bringing their entire executive team, plus some supposed investors. Actually just their golf club friends with mediocre credit scores. I loosened my tie, the cheap one I wore for family dinners, and pulled up the Leopold security feeds on my wall of screens. Time to prepare for tomorrow's show. Are the cameras in the lobby ready? All set. We can record every delicious moment of their realization. Walking to my private office, I passed walls lined with magazine covers and articles my parents had never seen, or more likely, never bothered to look for. 30 Under 30. The secret real estate mogul transforming downtown. Mystery investor's empire exceeds $5 billion. The new face of private equity. Success in stealth mode. My name was never mentioned, I'd made sure of that. The articles used pseudonyms, silhouettes, the carefully crafted persona I'd built while my parents were busy lamenting my lack of ambition. Sarah followed with her tablet. Should I prepare the usual rejection of purchase offer letter for their firm? No, I smiled, an idea forming. Tomorrow deserves something special. Have legal draw up a full response, detailing every failed project they've managed, every defaulted loan, every investor they've disappointed. Make it clear that the owner of the Leopold doesn't deal with, what did Mom call me? Nobodies. That's deliciously cruel, Sarah grinned. Want me to have it delivered during their meeting? Perfect timing. I settled into my chair, overlooking the city that increasingly belonged to me. Oh, and Sarah, make sure the security team knows, when they inevitably demand to speak to the building's owner. Let me guess, you'll be too busy counting your billions to meet with unsuccessful developers? Something like that. I picked up the cheap tie I'd worn to dinner, tossing it in the trash. Tomorrow they learn what real success looks like. Even if they don't know it's their nobody child teaching them the lesson. The next morning, I watched through my private security feed as my parents' entourage arrived at the Leopold building. Mom in her outdated Chanel suit, Dad sporting his power tie, and their small parade of golf club investors, all blissfully unaware that their net worth combined wouldn't cover my monthly property tax bill. They're here, Sarah announced unnecessarily, barely containing her glee. Should I cue up the security protocol? Let's watch the show, I replied, settling into my ergonomic chair that cost more than Dad's car. The lobby camera showed James, our head of security, approaching their group with practiced professionalism. I turned up the audio. Good morning, he said formally. How may I assist you? Dad stepped forward, oozing the false confidence I'd watched him perfect over years of failing upward. We have a meeting scheduled. Harrison Development Group. Ah yes, James consulted his tablet. I'm afraid there's been a change in protocol. All potential buyers need explicit permission from the owner to access the building's executive floors. Mom's perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly. But we have a scheduled appointment. Surely you can't mean. Owner's orders, James replied smoothly. Very private individual. Very particular about who gets access. Do you know who we are? Dad's voice rose slightly. Harrison Development is one of the most respected firms in the city. I smirked, pulling up their company's real financials on my screen. 3 failed projects in the last year. 2 defaulted loans. A credit rating that made student debt look attractive. Of course, sir, James continued, his poker face perfect. However, the owner's protocol is quite strict. Perhaps you'd like to submit a formal request for a meeting with the owner first. This is outrageous. Mom's voice hit that particular pitch she reserved for special disappointment. We are serious buyers. Who does this owner think they are? Through another camera, I watched their investors shifting uncomfortably. They'd probably been promised an easy deal, a quick profit. Instead, they were getting a lesson in how real power operates. Sarah appeared with my morning coffee, served in a cup that cost more than the luxury watch Dad bragged about. The rejection letter is ready. Want me to have it delivered now? Not yet, I replied, watching the lobby drama unfold. Let them stew a bit longer. Dad was now demanding to speak to someone in charge, his face turning that particular shade of red I remembered from childhood lectures about real success. I am in charge of building security, James replied calmly. And without the owner's explicit permission, I cannot allow you access to the executive floors. Well, how do we contact this owner? One of their investors spoke up, already sounding defeated. The owner reviews all requests personally, James explained. Though I should mention, they're particularly selective about meeting with firms that have challenging financial histories. Mom's hand flew to her pearls, the fake ones she'd been passing off as real at country club gatherings. What exactly are you implying? Simply stating policy, ma'am. James smiled professionally. Though if you'd like, I can have our legal team send over a detailed explanation of why your firm might not meet the owner's standards for potential buyers. Perfect timing, I murmured, nodding to Sarah. She pressed a button on her tablet, and I watched as a security assistant approached the group with a thick envelope. For Harrison Development, the assistant announced. From the owner's legal team. Dad snatched the envelope, his hands shaking slightly as he tore it open. I zoomed in the camera, savoring every micro-expression as he read the first page. This is, he sputtered. A comprehensive analysis of why Harrison Development doesn't qualify for a meeting with the owner, James finished helpfully. Including a rather thorough review of your recent business challenges. The investors were already edging toward the door, suddenly very interested in their phones. Mom's makeup couldn't quite hide her rising panic. This is impossible, Dad was still muttering, flipping through the pages that detailed every failure, every misstep, every questionable decision his company had made. How did they get this information? I smiled, remembering all the family dinners where they'd dismissed my computer hobby. Amazing what you can learn when you understand modern data analytics. A concept their firm still treated like science fiction. Sir, James continued, perfectly playing his role, the owner also asked me to remind you that the Leopold building isn't interested in partnerships with, how did they phrase it? He checked his tablet. Ah yes, developers whose greatest success was 20 years ago. Mom snatched the papers from Dad's trembling hands. These numbers, these details, this is private information. Not to someone who knows where to look, I murmured to my empty penthouse office, watching them unravel through my wall of screens. Sarah appeared with another update. Their investors are already calling their brokers. Seems they're not interested in backing Harrison Development anymore. Should I show you their stock price? Put it on the main screen. The numbers told a beautiful story. Harrison Development's already struggling stock dropping in real time as word of their rejections spread through financial circles. My parents had always taught me that reputation was everything in business. They were about to learn just how right they were. Perhaps, James was saying in the lobby, you'd like to submit a formal request for a meeting with the owner? Though I should mention, they're currently in their penthouse office and I believe their schedule is rather full with more promising opportunities. My phone buzzed, a message from Mom. Alex, honey, are you free for lunch? We need to discuss some family business opportunities. There was. When all else failed, when their precious reputation was crumbling, they suddenly remembered their unsuccessful child. Probably hoping my mysterious consulting job might offer some insight into the Leopold's owner. We demand to speak to whoever's up there. Dad's voice had reached that particular tone that used to make me flinch at family dinners. Now it just amused me. James glanced up directly at one of my cameras, though they didn't notice, and smiled slightly. I'm afraid the owner is quite busy. Currently watching some fascinating security footage. I pressed the intercom button, disguising my voice slightly. Everything all right in the lobby, James? The effect was electric. My parents froze. Their remaining investors perked up. Even the cleaning staff paused to watch. Just explaining our protocols to some unsuccessful developers, James replied smoothly. Ah, Harrison Development, my modified voice echoed through the lobby. Please remind them that unlike their family relationships, business success requires more than just showing up and demanding respect. Mom's face went pale. Dad's power tie suddenly looked like it was choking him. You can see us? Mom managed, looking around frantically. I see everything in my building, I replied, enjoying every second. Including desperate developers trying to save their failing company with other people's money. Though I'm curious, do you treat all your business prospects the way you treat your children? Dismissing their potential until you need something from them. The lobby fell silent. Through my screens I could see the exact moment they began to wonder, to question, to fear. "Who are you?" Dad demanded, but his voice had lost its authority. I pressed another button, sending their complete financial history scrolling across the lobby's digital displays. Every failed project, every missed opportunity, every dismissive comment about modern business practices coming back to haunt them. "Someone you taught a valuable lesson," I replied. "That success doesn't always look the way people expect. That sometimes the nobodies are quietly building empires while others are bragging about their country club memberships. Now, if you'll excuse me," I concluded through the intercom, "I have a lunch meeting with some actually successful developers. Though I hear your cousin Michael's law firm is hiring junior paralegals, perhaps that would be more your speed." The security feed showed them shuffling out, shoulders slumped, reputations in tatters. Their investors had already disappeared, probably calling their brokers to dump Harrison Development stock. Later that evening, I received another desperate message from Mom. "Alex, please, we really need to talk about some opportunities." I smiled, closing my laptop. Sometimes the best revenge isn't telling people who you've become. It's letting them wonder if they've been looking down on their biggest mistake or their worst nightmare. And sometimes, success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about building something so magnificent that their opinions become as irrelevant as their outdated business practices.
The Anderson family reunion was in full swing when I arrived, fashionably late as usual. Not that anyone would notice. I was never the main attraction at these gatherings. That honor belonged to my cousins, the successful ones. I smoothed down my simple black dress as I walked into Aunt Patricia's sprawling Hampton estate. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses drifted from the back patio, where 3 generations of Andersons were celebrating their collective achievements. "Diana, you finally made it." My mother's voice carried across the marble foyer, tight with familiar disappointment. "Everyone's already here." I gave her a quick hug, catching a whiff of her expensive perfume. "Sorry, had some work to finish up." She sighed. "Still at that consulting job." Before I could answer, my cousin Victoria swooped in, champagne glass in hand. At 35, she was the golden child of the family, CEO of Anderson Technologies, the company my uncle had built from the ground up. "Diana, darling," her air kiss barely grazed my cheek. "We were just discussing the company's latest acquisition. $30 million in pure profit last quarter." She paused, examining me with practiced concern. What exactly do you do these days?" I bit back a smile, thinking of the meeting I just left. "Still consulting, small businesses mostly." "Oh, that's nice." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "You know, we're always hiring at Anderson Tech. Entry-level positions, of course, but it would be a foot in the door. Better than wasting your potential on whatever it is you're doing." If she only knew what I've been doing for the past 5 years. While they thought I was scraping by as a small-time consultant, I'd built Phoenix Capital into one of the most powerful private equity firms in the country. We operated entirely through subsidiaries and shell companies, with my identity carefully hidden from public view. "I'm happy where I am," I said simply. Victoria exchanged a knowing look with my mother. "Well, if you ever want to join the real business world, let me know." I followed them to the patio, where the family dynasty was on full display. Uncle Robert, Victoria's father, held court near the grill, regaling everyone with stories of his latest business triumphs. My cousin Marcus, fresh from making partner at his law firm, was bragging about his new Porsche, and Aunt Patricia was showing off photos of her daughter Olivia's new fashion line. "Diana," Uncle Robert boomed when he saw me. "Come here, let me look at you. Still haven't found your path, have you?" I accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "I'm doing fine, Uncle Robert." "Fine isn't the Anderson way," he declared. "Look at Victoria, youngest female CEO in the tech sector. And Marcus just closed a $100 million deal. That's the kind of success this family is known for." I thought about the documents sitting on my desk back at Phoenix Capital, the ones that would redefine what success meant in the Anderson family. "Speaking of success," Victoria chimed in, "have you heard about our expansion plans? We're acquiring 3 smaller tech firms next quarter. The press is calling us the next big tech giant." What Victoria didn't know was that 2 of those acquisitions had already fallen through, thanks to some carefully placed competing offers from my shell companies. The third was about to be announced as a merger with a different firm entirely. How exciting! I murmured. It is, she gushed. Daddy says we'll hit $1 billion in revenue by next year. The Anderson name is going to be bigger than ever. I took another sip of champagne, remembering the market analysis on my desk. Anderson Technologies was overextended, their growth projections based on acquisitions that would never materialize. Their stock was artificially inflated, held up by hype and family reputation rather than solid fundamentals. And in less than 24 hours, everything would change. Diana, my mother touched my arm. Your cousin Olivia was just featured in Forbes 30 Under 30. Isn't that wonderful? Very impressive, I agreed, though I knew the feature had been bought and paid for by Aunt Patricia's PR team. You could have been on that list, my mother sighed. You had such potential at Goldman Sachs. Everyone thought you'd be the next big thing in finance. I had left Goldman 5 years ago, tired of the politics and facade. Instead of climbing someone else's corporate ladder, I built my own empire in secret. Phoenix Capital now managed over $50 billion in assets, though no one knew the founder and CEO was the Anderson family's underachiever. Times change, Mom. Speaking of change, Victoria announced loudly, commanding everyone's attention, I have big news. Anderson Tech is launching our IPO next month. The initial valuation is projected at $4 billion. The patio erupted in cheers and congratulations. Uncle Robert beamed with pride, while Marcus started calculating his family's future net worth out loud. Diana, Victoria turned to me with false sweetness. You should buy some shares when they go public. A small investment might help you finally build some real wealth. I thought about the team of analysts I had working late tonight, finalizing the details of tomorrow's announcement. I'll keep that in mind. Poor thing, I heard Aunt Patricia whisper to my mother. She just never lived up to her potential, did she? Such a shame, my mother agreed. All that education, and what does she have to show for it? I checked my phone, knowing what was coming. Right on schedule, a message appeared from my assistant. Final papers ready for review. Press release drafted for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Victoria noticed me looking at my phone. Work emergency, she smirked. One of your little consulting clients having a crisis. Something like that, I smiled. Actually, I've been meaning to ask you about Anderson Tech's Asian market strategy. I heard there were some concerns about the semiconductor division. Victoria's smile faltered slightly. The semiconductor division's troubles weren't public knowledge yet. Where did you hear that? Oh, you know how rumors spread in the business world. I watched her carefully, especially when a company is preparing for an IPO. Everything is fine, she said firmly, but I could see the worry in her eyes. The IPO will proceed as planned. If only she knew that Phoenix Capital had spent the last year quietly acquiring controlling interests in Anderson Tech's key suppliers. Or that we'd already secured support from the majority of their board members for tomorrow's hostile takeover. Of course, I said soothingly. I'm sure everything will work out exactly as it should. The reunion continued into the evening, a parade of family achievements and barely veiled criticisms of my life choices. I sat through it all, sipping champagne and waiting for the perfect moment. At least come work for me, Victoria tried one more time as the party wound down. Family should help family, right? I looked at her thoughtfully. You know what, Victoria? You're absolutely right. Family should help family. And tomorrow I'm going to help you understand something very important about the business world. She laughed, completely missing my tone. What could you possibly teach me about business? You'd be surprised, I murmured, checking my phone one last time. Everything was in place. In less than 12 hours, the Anderson family would learn that success doesn't always wear a designer label or brag at family reunions. Sometimes it sits quietly in the corner, waiting for the perfect moment to show its true face. The next morning, I sat in my penthouse office at Phoenix Capital, watching the sunrise paint the city skyline in shades of gold. In exactly 1 hour, the business world would learn that Anderson Technologies was under new management. The press release is ready, my assistant, Marie, announced from the doorway. And the board members have all confirmed their votes. I nodded, adjusting my Chanel suit, a rare indulgence for days like this. And Victoria? Already at Anderson Tech headquarters, preparing for their IPO announcement, she scheduled a press conference for 9:30, a conference that would never happen. Perfect timing, I murmured. My phone buzzed, a message from Victoria. Thought about what I said. Last chance to get in on the IPO before we go public. Family discount. I set the phone down without replying. Instead, I opened my laptop to review the morning's announcement one last time. Phoenix Capital announces acquisition of controlling interest in Anderson Technologies. Effective immediately, the board has approved new executive leadership. At exactly 9:00 a.m., the news broke. I watched on multiple screens as the story spread across financial networks. Breaking. Anderson Technologies acquired in surprise takeover. Tech giant's IPO plans halted by Phoenix Capital. Mystery CEO strikes again. Phoenix Capital's latest power move. My phone exploded with notifications. Victoria called 7 times in 3 minutes. Uncle Robert's name flashed across my screen repeatedly. Even Marcus, the hotshot lawyer, was trying to reach me. At 9:15, Marie appeared again. They're all in the lobby, the entire Anderson family. I smiled. Send them up. Victoria burst through my office door first, her perfect makeup already smearing with angry tears. Who do you think you are? You can't do this. We're announcing our IPO today. Uncle Robert was right behind her, his face purple with rage. Where is the CEO? I demand to speak with them immediately. Mom? Dad? They froze at my voice. I think you already are. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Uncle Robert gripped the back of a chair for support. My mother pressed a hand to her chest, designer bracelets jingling. That's impossible, Victoria finally whispered. I stood slowly, enjoying the dramatic effect. Is it? Let's see. Phoenix Capital, founded 5 years ago, currently manages assets worth over $50 billion. Known for strategic takeovers of overvalued tech companies. I paused. Sound familiar? You're the mystery CEO, Marcus stammered. The one they call the Phoenix. The very same. I picked up a folder from my desk. Would you like to see the numbers, Victoria? The real numbers, not the inflated projections you've been showing potential investors? She snatched the folder, hands shaking as she flipped through the pages. These are confidential. How did you? Your semiconductor division is failing, I stated calmly. Your Asian market expansion was built on fraudulent data. 3 of your top executives have been selling shares quietly for months. Should I continue? Uncle Robert found his voice. Now see here, young lady. No, I cut him off. You see here. For years, you've built this image of the perfect business dynasty. The mighty Andersons, too successful to fail. But it was all smoke and mirrors, wasn't it? I pressed a button on my desk, and the wall of screens behind me lit up with data. Real data. About Anderson Technologies' true financial state. Your company's actual value is less than half what you've been claiming, I continued. The only thing keeping your stock price up was the hype around the IPO. An IPO that's now canceled. Victoria collapsed into a chair, her designer dress crumpling. Why? Why would you do this to your own family? I laughed softly. My own family? The same family that spent years mocking my career choices. The same family that offered me entry-level positions out of pity. We were trying to help you, my mother protested weakly. No, you were trying to control me, to force me into your version of success. I walked around my desk. But real success isn't about appearances or family names. It's about building something solid, something real. So this is revenge, Uncle Robert demanded. This is business, I corrected him. Phoenix Capital acquires underperforming companies and restructures them into something worthwhile. The fact that this one belongs to my family is, let's call it serendipity. Marcus stepped forward, straightening his tie. The board would never approve this. I'll have my firm. The board already has approved it, I interrupted. Unanimously. Check your phone. As if on cue, their phones began buzzing with news alerts. The stock was already plummeting as the market reacted to the announcement. Victoria looked up from her phone, tears streaking her mascara. You've destroyed us. No, I said firmly. I've saved you from yourselves. Phoenix Capital specializes in turning failing companies around. In 6 months, Anderson Technologies will be stronger than ever, just not under Anderson management. And what happens to us? My mother asked quietly. I pressed another button, and new documents appeared on the screens. You'll each be offered fair compensation for your shares. Generous severance packages for the current executives. And I smiled slightly. I might have some entry-level positions available. A foot in the door. The irony wasn't lost on them. Victoria stood up abruptly, smoothing her rumpled dress. "You won't get away with this." "I already have." I sat back down at my desk. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to restructure." They left in stages. First Marcus, already on the phone with his law firm. Then Uncle Robert, supporting a shell-shocked Victoria. My mother lingered at the door. "All this time," she said softly, "you were building this empire." "All this time," I confirmed, "while you were busy being embarrassed by my small consulting business." She shook her head slowly. "I don't even know you anymore." "No," I agreed. "You never did." After they left, I walked to the window, watching the city buzz below. Marie appeared with fresh coffee. "Their security passes have been deactivated at Anderson Tech," she reported. "The transition team is already in place." And the press, clamoring for an interview with the mysterious Phoenix. Several have already figured out the family connection. I smiled. Let them speculate. Actions speak louder than interviews. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Victoria. "I hope you're happy. You've torn this family apart." I typed back, "No, Victoria, I've just shown you what real success looks like." Over the next few months, Phoenix Capital transformed Anderson Technologies. We streamlined operations, fixed the semiconductor division, and built genuine partnerships in the Asian market. The stock price, after an initial drop, climbed steadily based on real performance rather than family reputation. I kept my promise about job offers. Marcus now works in our legal department at entry level, of course. Victoria declined her offer. But Uncle Robert surprised everyone by accepting a position as a senior advisor. Turns out he actually knows quite a bit about technology when he's not busy promoting the family name. The next family reunion was interesting. Aunt Patricia still hosted it at her Hampton estate, though the crowd was notably smaller. The usual bragging was replaced by more subdued conversations. And me? I sat in the same corner as always, sipping champagne and watching. Deanna, Victoria approached near the end of the evening, her designer clothes a little less flashy than before. "I've been thinking about what you said, about real success." And she hesitated. "Would that entry-level position still be available?" I studied her for a moment. "Come by the office on Monday. We'll talk." As I drove home that night, I thought about success and its many definitions. The Andersons had always measured it in appearances, in stock prices and press coverage and designer labels. But real success, I'd learned, was about building something meaningful, even if nobody knows your name. The next morning, I arrived at my office early. The Phoenix Capital logo glowed against the dawn sky, while 40 floors below, the old Anderson Technology sign was being replaced. Marie met me with my usual coffee. "The board meeting is set for 10. They want to discuss the next acquisition." I smiled, thinking of another family-owned company I'd been watching, one run by distant cousins who'd always looked down on the failed Anderson daughter. "Perfect timing," I said. "Let's show them what real success looks like." The Anderson family's corporate headquarters hadn't changed since I was a child. The same polished marble floors, the same oak-paneled walls, the same crushing weight of expectations and disappointment. Standing in the lobby, I smoothed down my simple black dress. No designer label, nothing to suggest I could buy this entire building without blinking. My name is Emma Anderson, though my family barely acknowledges the last name we share. To them, I'm just the daughter who walked away from the family business 5 years ago, choosing to forge my own path instead of accepting a token position at Anderson Global. If they only knew that I now own Sterling Enterprises, the corporation about to acquire their struggling company. The security guard, new, didn't recognize me, glanced at my visitor badge skeptically. "The executive meeting is in the main boardroom. Kitchen's down the hall." I bit back a smile. I know where the kitchen is. I'll find my way. The 20th floor was buzzing with activity. Today's board meeting wasn't just any meeting. It was the final discussion before tomorrow's vote on Sterling's acquisition offer, an offer my family desperately needed to accept, though their pride would never let them admit it. "Emma," my brother Michael's voice carried down the hallway, dripping with fake surprise. "What are you doing here?" I turned to face him, taking in his perfectly tailored suit, the gold watch that probably cost more than what he thought I made in a year. "Hello, Michael. Dad invited me." He raised an eyebrow. "Did he? To the board meeting?" His laugh was sharp. "Come on, Emma. This is for actual executives, people who understand business. And what exactly do you think I've been doing for the past 5 years? I kept my voice level, remembering the stack of acquisition papers waiting in my office across town. Oh right, your little consulting thing, he waved dismissively. How's that going? Still helping small businesses with their bookkeeping? If he only knew that little consulting thing was a cover for my real company, Sterling Enterprises, a corporation that had systematically acquired struggling companies across 3 continents. It pays the bills, I said mildly. Emma, our father's voice boomed from the boardroom doorway. Richard Anderson, CEO of Anderson Global, looked exactly as I remembered. Commanding presence, steel gray hair, and eyes that could freeze hell. You came. I nodded. You asked me to. Yes, well, he glanced at his watch. The meeting's about to start. Why don't you wait in the kitchen? Martha can bring you coffee. Michael smirked. The kitchen is where you belong. Successful people only in the boardroom. I thought about the past 5 years, building Sterling from the ground up, orchestrating deals that made Michael's biggest acquisitions look like pocket change, all while letting my family believe I was barely scraping by. Actually, I started, but was cut off by the arrival of Anderson Global's CFO, Thomas Wright. He hurried down the hallway, clutching a folder and looking worried. Mr. Anderson, we need to discuss these projections before the meeting. The numbers from last quarter. Not now, Thomas. My father's tone was sharp. We have more important matters to discuss. The Sterling offer is nowhere near what this company is worth, Michael interrupted confidently. We'll reject it, find another buyer. I had to stifle a laugh. I knew exactly what Anderson Global was worth. I'd spent months analyzing every detail, every weakness, every skeleton in a corporate closet. The kitchen, Emma, my father reminded me firmly. This isn't your concern. I walked toward the kitchen, their voices fading behind me. 5 years ago, I would have been hurt by the dismissal. Now it was almost amusing. Let them have their meeting, their illusion of control. Tomorrow everything would change. The kitchen was exactly as I remembered. State-of-the-art appliances that were barely used since the entire floor ordered takeout for every meal. Martha, the office manager who had worked here since I was a child, looked up in surprise. Emma, is that really you? I smiled, giving her a warm hug. She had always been kind to me, even after I left the family business. Hello, Martha. Still keeping this place running? She sighed, glancing at the boardroom. Trying to. Things haven't been the same since you left. Your brother, she lowered her voice. Well, let's just say some of his decisions haven't worked out so well. I knew exactly which decision she meant. Michael's failed expansion into Asian markets, the botched merger with Tech Solutions, the string of harassment complaints from female employees that had been quietly settled, all documented in Sterling's due diligence report. I heard about the Sterling offer, Martha continued, pouring me coffee. Between us, we need it. The company's not doing well, no matter what your father says. Is that why Dad invited me today? To witness their triumph over another buyer? Martha's expression turned knowing. Actually, he didn't invite you. Thomas did. Said it was important you be here. Now that was interesting. Thomas Wright had been Anderson Global's CFO for 20 years. He was also the only person in the company who knew exactly how bad things were. My phone buzzed. A text from my assistant at Sterling. Everything's ready for tomorrow. Board votes confirmed. Contracts prepared. I smiled, remembering Michael's smug face. Successful people only in the boardroom. Well, tomorrow they'd learn what real success looked like. Through the kitchen door, I could hear the board meeting starting. My father's voice carried clearly, still a commanding presence, still convinced he could control everything. As you know, we've received an acquisition offer from Sterling Enterprises. While the terms are generous, Anderson Global doesn't need a savior. We've weathered challenges before. Michael's voice chimed in. Exactly. This company was built by Andersons, and it will stay in Anderson hands. I had to admire their confidence, misplaced as it was. They had no idea that their company had been bleeding money for years, that their major clients were already in talks with Sterling, that tomorrow's vote was a mere formality. The kitchen door swung open, and Thomas slipped in, looking harried. He froze when he saw me, then quickly closed the door behind him. Ms. Anderson, he said quietly, or should I say, Ms. Sterling. My coffee cup paused halfway to my lips. How long have you known? He smiled tiredly. I've been tracking Sterling's acquisitions for years. The pattern, the methodology, it had your fingerprints all over it. When I saw the offer, I knew. Does anyone else know? No, but they will tomorrow, won't they? I set down my cup. They left me no choice, Thomas. Michael's running this company into the ground and Dad's too proud to stop him. He nodded. I know. That's why I made sure you were here today. They need to see, they need to understand what they've lost. Through the door, Michael's voice rose excitedly. In fact, I've just closed a deal that will show Sterling exactly who they're dealing with. The Zhang merger. I winced. The Zhang merger. A desperate attempt to enter the Chinese market that would have bankrupted Anderson Global if Sterling hadn't already arranged to block it. Thomas checked his watch. The CFO of Sterling should be calling any minute to discuss the Zhang deal. Right on cue, my phone rang. I answered, putting it on speaker. Go ahead, Marcus. Ms. Sterling, the Zhang contracts have been canceled as arranged. Would you like me to inform Anderson Global now or wait until tomorrow's board meeting? Thomas's eyes widened at my title. Even he hadn't known I was CEO. Now is fine, I said, loud enough to carry through the door. They should know exactly who they're dealing with. The kitchen door burst open. Michael stood there, face red with anger. What did you just say? Who are you talking to? I stood up slowly, smoothing my simple dress. Marcus, please hold. I believe I'll deliver this news in person. Walking past my stunned brother, I entered the boardroom where my father and the board members sat in frozen silence. For the first time in 5 years, I took my place at the head of the table. The Zhang merger is dead, I announced calmly, just like every other desperate attempt to save this company will be. Unless, of course, you accept Sterling's offer. My father's face had turned ashen. What are you talking about? How do you know about Zhang? I smiled, thinking of all the times they'd sent me to the kitchen, dismissed my ideas, treated me as less than nothing. Because, Dad, I'm the CEO of Sterling Enterprises, and tomorrow, one way or another, this company will be mine. The silence in the boardroom was deafening. 20 faces stared at me in shock, their expressions ranging from disbelief to horror as my words sank in. My father gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles white. Michael had collapsed into a seat, his arrogance evaporating like morning dew. Marcus, I spoke into my phone, still on speaker. Please send in the transition team. Right away, Miss Sterling. My father found his voice first. This is impossible. Sterling Enterprises is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You're just what, Dad? I met his gaze steadily. Just the daughter you sent to the kitchen? Just the failure who walked away from the family business? The boardroom doors opened and my team walked in, senior executives from Sterling, legal counsel, financial analysts. All people who had worked with me for years, who knew exactly who I was and what I was capable of. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the board. You have less than 24 hours to accept Sterling's offer. If you refuse, we'll proceed with our alternative strategy. Michael laughed nervously. Alternative strategy? What alternative strategy? I nodded to my CFO, who distributed folders to each board member. Over the past 3 years, Sterling has systematically acquired controlling interests in your major clients' companies. We've also purchased a significant portion of your debt. If you reject our offer, we'll simply redirect the business elsewhere. The board members flipped through the documents, their faces growing paler with each page. They were seeing the truth, how thoroughly I had outmaneuvered them, how completely I controlled their fate. This is corporate terrorism, Michael shouted, jumping to his feet. You can't do this. Actually, I can, and I have. I pulled out another folder. Would you like to discuss the Zhang merger, brother? Or perhaps we should talk about the harassment settlements you thought you buried. He sank back into his chair, the blood draining from his face. My father stood slowly, his authority crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. Why, Emma? Why go to all this trouble? If you wanted to come back. Come back. I cut him off. To what? A token position. Another lecture about knowing my place. I gestured to my team. I built something better, something you never thought I could do. Thomas, still standing by the door, cleared his throat. The company's financials. They're worse than anyone here knows. Without this merger. Shut up, Michael snapped. We don't need their money. Actually, I said quietly, you do. Your last 3 quarters have shown significant losses. The Zhang merger would have bankrupted you. Your stock price is about to plummet when the market opens tomorrow. I paused. Unless, of course, you announce your merger with Sterling Enterprises. One of the board members, an elderly man who had known me since childhood, spoke up. The terms of the merger, they're fair? I nodded. More than fair. Sterling will absorb all debt, protect all jobs except senior management, and maintain the Anderson name on subsidiary projects. I met my father's eyes. I'm not here to destroy what you built. I'm here to save it from those who never understood its true value. The room erupted in whispered conversations. Board members huddled over documents, analyzing numbers they should have questioned years ago. My father stood frozen, watching his empire slip through his fingers. Michael, desperate now, tried one last play. The investors won't stand for this. The Anderson family name means nothing without results, I finished. Check your phones, everyone. The market just opened in Hong Kong. News of the Zhang merger failure should be hitting any moment. As if on cue, phones began buzzing around the room. The color drained from faces as board members saw their stock price beginning its predicted dive. Time's up, I announced. You have 2 choices. Accept Sterling's offer now, before the US markets open, or watch this company collapse by closing bell. The board chairman cleared his throat. I move we vote immediately on the Sterling acquisition offer. Seconded, came a chorus of voices. My father held up a hand. Wait. Just wait. He turned to me, and for the first time, I saw something new in his eyes, respect, tinged with fear. All this time you were building this? Planning this? No, Dad. I was building something successful, something meaningful. The fact that it led here, I shrugged. That's just business. The vote was quick and unanimous. Even Michael, seeing the writing on the wall, raised his hand in favor. Within an hour, papers were signed, press releases drafted, and Anderson Global officially became a subsidiary of Sterling Enterprises. As the board members filed out, many stopping to shake my hand with newfound deference, Martha appeared at the door. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears of pride. I always knew you were meant for more than the kitchen, she whispered, hugging me tight. Michael was the last to leave, his swagger replaced by defeated shuffle. At the door, he paused. Was any of it real? Your struggling consultant act. Every great business person knows the value of market research, I replied. I learned exactly how this company was being run, by watching from the kitchen. Only my father remained, standing at the window that overlooked the city skyline. What happens now? Now? I joined him at the window. Now we rebuild. Make this company what it should have been. One that values merit over inheritance, innovation over tradition. And us, your family? I thought about all the family dinners where my ideas were dismissed, all the meetings I was barred from, all the times I was told to know my place. You'll always be my father, I said finally. But this, I gestured to the boardroom. This is business. And in business, I stopped being just your daughter a long time ago. He nodded slowly, understanding at last. When did you become this? I always was this, Dad. You just never bothered to look past your own expectations to see it. The next few months transformed Anderson Global. Under Sterling's leadership, toxic management was cleared out, innovative projects were given priority, and the company's value steadily climbed. Michael found himself working under a female VP half his age, learning what real business acumen looked like. My father retired, though we both knew it wasn't really his choice. He sent me message after message, trying to rebuild our relationship now that he understood my true capabilities. But some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt with simple apologies. 1 year later, I stood in my office at Sterling's headquarters, looking out over the city. My assistant entered with the morning reports. Your brother's here to see you, she said quietly, says it's important. I smiled, remembering his words from that day. The kitchen is where you belong. Successful people only in the boardroom. Tell him he can wait in the kitchen, I replied. I'm busy running a successful company. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Sometimes you have to leave the table where you're not welcome to build your own empire. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't taking over the family business. It's making them realize they never really knew what business was at all. As for me, I still visit the kitchen at Anderson Global sometimes. Not because anyone sends me there, but because that's where I first learned the most valuable lesson in business. The people at the top don't always see what's really going on. But if you're willing to start at the bottom, learn every detail, and work harder than anyone else, one day, you might just find yourself signing their checks. And that's a business lesson even my family had to respect.